head on back to Albion and get yourself a prime hands job. Wait, am I allowed to say that? Oh, well, too late. Hello, Internet. Magic Man here from mmobomb.com, bringing you another first look video. This time it's for NEXON's The First Descendant, the free-to-play third-person looter shooter available on PC, PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox One, and the Xbox Series S and X, with some options through GeForce Now, all cross-play enabled. We're going to spend about 15-20 minutes or so checking out the game, giving you our first impressions. If you like this type of content, make sure you click that subscribe button, click on like, and let us know how you're feeling about The First Descendant in the comments below. Let's get started. All right, first, let's discuss the elephant in the room. To catch you up, if you haven't taken part in any of the previous betas for The First Descendant, or you haven't jumped in and checked it out by now, yeah, there might be a little bit of a familiar feeling with this one. While initial trailers and everything probably showed it to you as a typical looter shooter in the vein of something like The Division 2, Destiny 2, Warframe, games like that, once you get in and play the game, you're going to find that Nexon probably looked at Warframe and said, let's do that. There's an awful lot of Warframe's DNA on this one. The First Descendant really wants to be Warframe when it grows up, but unfortunately, at least at the moment, it has quite a bit of growing up to do. I mean, Warframe's been out forever now and is usually held up as one of the models of the free-to-play industry done right. So it's going to be interesting to see if Nexon can iterate and emulate their way to a similar title. I'd say it's about like 80 to 85% Warframe, and then that extra 10, 15, 20% is pieces from Destiny 2 and pieces from other looter shooters. Once you've booted up the game, you're going to be tasked with choosing one of 3 descendants, and you've got a couple of variant play styles here. Your descendants are basically your frames, and in fact, the game is so much like Warframe, I've accidentally called them frames while playing the game with friends and my sons. So pick one of the 3 to start off with. You've kind of got an ice build, a crowd control specialist, you've got a beefy tank that can throw up some barriers and a few options. Now, there's other descendants that you can unlock through the cash shop, which we'll get through to a bit later, but you can also unlock them through gameplay, and then there's ultimate versions of all of those descendants as well. Each descendant can be equipped with whatever you want to equip them with, so you don't have to worry about that front. Just take a look at the skills and abilities that each descendant uses and decide whether those skills and abilities really suit your play style. This choice at the beginning is a little bit important in the respect that this is going to be the only descendant you have for the initial portions of the game. You won't be able to go back and select one of the 2 that you passed on. However, very early in the main story, you'll be building the Bunny Warframe. I'm sure you've seen Bunny all over the internet by now as the First Descendant's waifu of early choice for most players, but there's plenty others if you want to choose someone later. Get used to the one that you're playing now. You'll play them for a couple of hours before you build Bunny, and then you'll be off to the races to gather the materials to build other descendants so that you can level them later. So what's the core gameplay loop here? Well, The First Descendant is strictly a PvE game. There is no PvP to be found, and that's kind of par for the course, right? Warframe didn't even initially launch with PvP. Of course, it came later. Maybe it'll come later to The First Descendant, but it's not in here now. You're going to take on a third-person shooting aspect where you rush through a kind of average main story so far. It's very, hey, there's a MacGuffin, humanity's last stand, subscribe if you've heard all of this before. And we've got to find the MacGuffin, then it gets stolen by the bad guys, then we've got to work our way to trying to get that MacGuffin back through the help of a shady, kind of not quite functioning AI called the Guide that some descendants may trust and others don't trust. So it's pretty standard fare as far as your main story goes. You'll be equipped with 3 weapons. All of those weapons and your descendant can be equipped with various modules throughout the game that you'll earn as loot and you'll be able to craft later. Those modules are going to give you certain perks on your character, your descendant, on certain weapons, maybe increased rate of fire, things like that. Your loadout is entirely yours to make. You are only limited by the number of modules a given weapon or descendant can equip, or the power of those modules exceeding a particular cap, which you will be able to increase later. Once you're off and running, you'll be hitting the maps of the world. Now, again, think Warframe, where you jump to a planet and then go do a task on that planet. This is more, you have regions on a planet, you jump to the regions, and then you work your way through specific tasks in those regions, whether they be main story quests, whether they be side story quests, or whether they be just open events taking place on the map. Now, you're going to need a bunch of different currencies, as I'm sure you can tell. Tons of consumables that are going to be used to craft weapons and modules and things like that later. And even void shards to open up some of the public events, which may or may not have various restrictions on them, not only based on level, but what elements are going to do damage to a given target to then open that target up to general damage. Now, that doesn't mean that you and your particular descendant have to have the element required. It just means somebody in the group needs to have it. So if it requires flame damage, somebody needs to be able to do flame damage to pop shields, and then everybody else can do damage as well. So it's not restrictive unless you're alone, right? If you're alone and you don't meet the elemental requirement, you're going to have to come back to this later with either a different descendant, different abilities, or different weapons with different mods so you can meet the elemental requirements. There are kind of PvE dungeons in here as well that you'll be able to matchmake for and run through, kill a couple of bosses, get yourself a bunch of loot. And that's the name of the game, right? It's all about gear acquisition. Now, whether or not you decide to equip that gear and level it up, since it has its own leveling sequence, doesn't really matter, right? You may do that so that you can get some experience for your mastery ranks, or you may decide to just salvage these for the materials. There are a ton of different options as far as what's available with all of your gear. Now, you'll be doing all of this in an effort to up your mastery rank, something very familiar to Warframe players. Your mastery rank, the nice way to think about it is it's kind of your account level, right? You're going to gain experience by leveling weapons up and their proficiency, leveling descendants up, provided you have not slotted them once they've achieved their own individual descendant max level of 40, and various other activities, finishing story missions for the first time, that type of thing. Once you've leveled up your mastery, you'll get a lovely banner that tells you, hey, you're available to go level up mastery. And then you can head on back to Albion and get yourself a prime hands job. Wait, am I allowed to say that? Oh, well, too late. And that'll up your mastery level. Upping mastery level is going to give you more slots for modules, more capacity for modules on your descendants, on your weapons. It's also going to open up more inventory slots so you can carry more of that sweet, sweet loot. And it's going to open up certain systems throughout the game, whether that be actual weapon crafting, weapon transmission, slot, module slot modifications. It will open up a number of systems as you go through the game. And that's what you're trying to do, right? Up those mastery levels. The cap is 30. Open up all of those bonuses by playing not just one descendant through the main story, but every descendant that you can get your hands on, because once they've achieved 40, while you can slot them and start gaining experience on them again, if you do so, that experience doesn't count towards mastery ranks. You have to be leveling up your descendants for the first time or getting proficiency levels with weapons as you are going. That's the only things that are going to do your mastery. There are other oddball events that will count here and there, so there is some farming going on in certain zones, high-level characters kind of just rushing certain activities over and over and over again to power level their friends a little bit. That'll get you so far so fast. That's all well and good. Whether or not those actually stay in the game as intended or not, we'll have to see what NEXON does in the short term. And now we get to the game's cash shop, right? And the obvious comparison, once again, here is going to be Warframe, a free-to-play game that does have this same type of very, very repetitive loop. Open up new frames, open up new weapons, use them, level them up, increase your mastery ranking. That same type of loop. So there's an awful lot of grinding just inherently in this gameplay. That's the name of the game, is grinding. Finding the materials you want to get and going after them. Some of them may not have 100% chances to drop. There's a library/codex in the game that will show you where to get materials, whether that be some of the core components to craft other descendants or particular weapons that you are after, whether they be ultimate weapons or ultimate descendants. And the balance of that grind versus the cash shop's boosts is an important consideration. Now, Warframe has that kind of down to a science, the way they've executed here. Does the First Descendant? Arguably not yet. That's not to say that it won't get there or that it's absolutely abysmal right now. It's not, except for the performance front, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But there are clear advantages to the cash shop, and it being a Nexon product, the cash shop is continuously thrown in your face. You are reminded every time you log in that the game features a battle pass, and that you should go buy the battle pass so that you can get all these wonderful drops. There are free drops in there if you opt not to buy the battle pass, but the chance to get cash shop currency in there is restricted to people that have paid for the battle pass, and achieving level 100 in the battle pass is not enough to buy you the next battle pass. Now, what goes beyond that, if there is anything, I'm not there yet, so I can't tell you, but getting to level 100 in the battle pass just doesn't give you enough currency. It's a little bit shy, so there is going to be that constant payment. Now, when you look at the boosts, which is going to be the important part of a game like this, right? Is the grind bearable, fun, and I want to do it so that I can farm the materials to craft that next descendant? Or is the grind so unbearable that I'm almost forced to buy these 30% XP, 30% gold boosts to mitigate how long it is taking to get those things? This is a really fine balancing act, and it's going to be interesting long term if the First Descendant actually has these balanced. I personally don't think that they do, but I also have not been farming materials for my ultimate descendant yet, the really high level things you may want to get. So we'll have to wait and see as I play the game and others play the game to give their opinions, but there is that concern there for me. The other concern is just the pricing. Yes, there's some initial bundles that you can buy off the bat that are going to make your jump into the First Descendant a little faster. You'll get some boost, you'll get some rare modules even. Not modules that you can't get better or make better versions of fairly quickly in the game. So yeah, you are kind of paying for an initial burst of power in those bundles, but it's relatively short-lived. You're not buying the end-game modules or anything in the cash shop. But their pricing for the actual descendants is kind of oof. We've got different ultimate descendants priced anywhere from about 60 to 100 USD. The way their cash shop currency breaks down, it's about 2 cents per caliber, and it costs 60 to 100 USD to pick up any of these ultimate bundles if you just want to buy them outright. Most of the regular ones are about 300, so you're paying about $6 to open these up if you don't want to farm them in-game. And there is a little bit of a logjam I've found in my playing so far in the rate at which you just naturally unlock new descendants through gameplay, the way the game teaches you to go through the missions and get various materials. At about Mastery Rank 9 or 10, there's a little bit of a logjam sometimes where you just haven't opened up any new descendants, and so you have to revert to just swapping weapons around and leveling weapons to kind of break through a couple more mastery ranks and farm the materials to unlock a descendant or two. So you may run into that little issue. Now, on that front, let's take a look at some technical issues. I'm not going to lie to you, it's been a rocky launch so far for the First Descendant, and I was really looking forward to this game as a potential Warframe alternative. If you are looking for that, maybe this does it. There's a few differences that we'll talk about in my final thoughts. But the tech performance has been really bad. Frequent disconnects, frequent rubber banding. In fact, there were multiple segments of time, hours at a time, where the servers were just totally offline for emergency maintenance. Some of that, obviously, Microsoft had issues with servers this past week as well, but other issues are exclusive to the First Descendants game itself, and they have been passing out compensation almost daily to say sorry, giving away those 30% boosts that I've been talking about. A little note on that, though, once you claim them from the mailbox, they are immediately active. So if you want to save those, let them sit in your mailbox, although there is also a timer on how long they will be in your mailbox. So make sure you're paying attention to those timers so that you use the boosts at the exact time you want to use the boosts. Today, in fact, I wrote a story on MMOBomb where they have all of a sudden just decided, you know what, there were some beta-specific rewards if you took part in their Steam beta in 2022 or their crossplay beta in 2023. There were specific rewards for those, a couple of emotes, stuff like that. They have now given those to all players because of the issues they've been having. And that includes anybody that jumps in going forward. So if you're watching this and you're thinking you want to check it out and you haven't checked it out already, don't worry. Those rewards will be in your mailbox as well. And so we get down to the kind of my final impressions of the First Descendant so far. I can't say that I'm not enjoying it. There are fun aspects to the game. It doesn't have anywhere near the fun traversal mechanics that Warframe has with its Tenno jumping around and spinning and flipping and doing all the fun things that Tenno can do. You do have kind of a tether that you can zip line towards enemies or towards locations and get the high ground and things like that. It is on a cooldown timer, though, so you can't use it to just go Spider-Manning your way across the map, at least initially. So you are a little bit limited on that. It's got a little bit of a slower feel. The gunplay is okay. It's not the best, it's not the tightest, and it really depends on the weapons you're using to a great extent. Some of the abilities are very, very cool, and some of the Descendant abilities just seem to lack impact, and they don't feel like they're doing a lot, and there certainly isn't any impressive nature to many of them right now. But if you are out there looking for an alternative to Warframe, for whatever reason, maybe the aesthetic of Warframe doesn't do it for you, the direction that they've been kind of headed with some open world stuff and in space combat, and for whatever reason, if Warframe just hasn't been doing it for you, but you like that gameplay, there is something to be found here in the First Descendant. I am having fun playing it with others, whether that be just doing missions within public zones with total strangers to help finish things faster, whether that's grouping up with friends, which has its own kind of rubber bandy problems here and there with the tech, particularly if a couple of you have accepted the mission and started it, and then a minute later, one of the other members of the party accepts the mission, and you kind of get rubber banded back to the starting point. So there is definitely fun to be had here. Long term, it's going to need a lot of work. It has squarely put itself in direct competition with Warframe, who has a multi-year head start and has learned some very valuable lessons along the way. Now, the First Descendant would be wise to learn from those lessons now rather than make some of those same mistakes. I don't like how aggressive the cash shop seems to be thrown in your face. It's not a super egregious cash shop, but I do question their pricing on skins and Ultimate Descendants. If they actually want people to consider buying these, $60 to $100, very, very expensive. Again, your prime competitor has these options for cheaper, so All in all, I think I'll give it a thumbs up right now, but it's a tentative thumbs up. There's some fun to be had here, but there are some long-term concerns, and it is Nexon, so I doubt any of those cash shop concerns that I and many others have expressed. I don't know how much those are going to change. I mean, it's just Nexon has this reputation for these types of monetizations. None of it's new or particularly egregious. It's a battle pass and cosmetics and, yeah, some starting boosts, and you can buy boosts at any time you want to increase your XP gains. So you can theoretically buy your way to much faster progression, but you're still going to have to get the weapons and the modules to deck your Descendant out the way you want, with the perks, the skills, and the modified skills that you want to use. You're still going to have to play the game to get that, and that's good. The prices, not so much. Let me know what you're feeling about the First Descendant so far, just a few days after launch, setting aside tech issues, I guess, but enjoy those compensation rewards. And if you like this content, as always, make sure you subscribe, click like, and comment down below. Feed the YouTube algorithms. Until next time, gang, this is Magic Man saying stay safe, and I'll see you on the servers.